Hi, I'm Mark Sherlock. I'm a development manager at Thomas James Homes in the Bay Area of California, and this is a student's perspective.
Great. Hi, I'm Katie, and you are watching A Student's Perspective. Today I'm speaking with Mark Sherlock, Development Manager at Thomas James Homes. If you like our conversation today, like and share and comment any questions you may have. Okay, thank you for speaking with us today. Would you like to just start off by telling us a little bit about you and your background?
Sure. So my name is Mark Sherlock. I'm from Syracuse, New York, originally. Um, Graduated from Cicero North Syracuse High School in 2011. Made my way down to Marywood University's School of Architecture program. Graduated with a Bachelor's of Architecture in 2016. Was fortunate enough to play 4 years of college baseball alongside my education. After graduating from Marywood School of Architecture, I got a job working for Dahlin Architecture and Planning in Pleasanton, California. Spent the last 4.5 years with them. And then around December of 2020, I decided to make the jump into home building, where now I work for Thomas James Homes as a development manager. And that's about the background. That's kind of where I came from, and moving forward in my career.
Wow, that's so exciting. So, like you said, you're a Marywood alumni. Could you tell us like your time at Marywood? I was talking to Steven earlier, and he said maybe you were the second year graduating from here. Is that true?
So I don't know if it was the second. So I graduated in 2016, and I want to say I was like the third or the fourth graduating class. I could be really off with that number. But either way, when I did get to Marywood, it did not have as accreditation originally. It was something that definitely scared us a little bit, especially when, being one of the first students into that program, it was kind of a little concerning. Right up until we started class and we saw the facilities, we knew the teachers we had, we kind of understood the curriculum and the direction that we were going down. And that kind of weighted all of the concerns aside, especially when we got to meet the accreditation committee and have them come into our facilities, check out the programs, and kind of oversee some of the classes we were working on. It was a little concerning at that point, but again, once we got going into the program, I knew what I was getting out of it. It definitely did put me through a 180. I did not know what architecture was coming into college. I thought it was four walls, a roof, some windows, and some doors. And come to find out, that is not what it is. So for me, Marywood was a great experience. It changed. I think it started with your mindset first and foremost. I think that is the most important piece of architecture. Masses, planes, frames, the whole nine. That is the epitome of what we do as architects, and it changed my mindset as I was designing homes early on in my career. And if I didn't have that originally, I certainly wouldn't be as successful or even in the position that I am in today. The ideology behind architecture, it's being able to put yourself into somebody else's shoes, be able to think outside the box, put yourself in a different perspective, and be able to see those, be able to generate a story. That is the nature of architecture, is having some kind of foundation, no pun intended, but to really develop that mindset into any type of educational background pursuit, and obviously in the professional world. So Marywood did a number on me, and I'm very grateful for the teachers, for the program, the curriculum, and where it's gotten me today, which is now to the other side of the country, fortunately, building houses.
Yeah. I could definitely agree. Walking in freshman year, it was not what I expected, and just like super exciting. And I really enjoyed my first year, even though it is a lot of work and I barely slept. But yeah, it was just so fun. So going off of that, after graduating from Marywood, what was your first steps into like the workforce? I know you started off as an intern, and then you kind of jumped around a lot. So like I wanted to know like maybe how you made those connections after graduating.
Sure. I mean, I'll even start in college. So my first internship was after my junior year at Simplex Modular Homes, which is in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Um, Talk about a whirlwind of experience. It was a prefab modular engineering firm. I worked in a trailer in a warehouse, seeing all of the homes get built, or at least not the homes themselves, the individual pieces, the modular boxes being built behind me. That was an unbelievable experience. It definitely put the technical perspective into place. You know, home building isn't, you know, these beautiful, magnificent buildings that, you know, Zaha Hadid or Frank Lloyd Wright are building. You know, it's much more production based. And to see that type of development, to see how a set of construction documents actually looks in the real world, that was eye opening, especially as a junior in college, because it took all of those first 3 years of, you know, design theory and really kind of boiling that mindset down and putting it in two dimensions so somebody could go out and actually build it. So that was my first internship. I did that one summer and one winter. Okay, so into my second internship was from my fourth year into my fifth year. And that was actually where I got the experience working for an architecture firm in Syracuse, New York, where I'm from. I worked for William Taylor Architects. Small shop, only had 3, 4 people working for them, and they did a lot of commercial buildings. They did dentist office, they did schools, they did libraries. And for me, it was a whirlwind of experience because the owner of the company, William or Bill Taylor, was actually a family friend. And the first thing he ever did when he sat me down was tell me, you know, first of all, repeat after me. He goes, "You don't know." I'm going to say anything, but he used a bad word because you don't know anything. And I'm just like, well, I had my internship, you know, I know a little bit. He goes, no, 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 you don't know anything. And it was true. And I will wholeheartedly admit that I did not know anything about architecture at that point in my career. I knew how to put together floor plans and a construction documents. And that was really it. I got a very, very quick insight into that side of the architecture world. And I knew right away that I wanted nothing to do with schools. I wanted nothing to do with abatements, dentist office, you know, and that was a personal choice that I wanted to get into residential work. So after graduating, I made it a point like, hey, I'm going into the single family residential world. I'm going to throw my resume out there into as many places possible. I was fortunate enough to study abroad, so I knew I wanted to travel. I knew I didn't want to be on the East Coast. I wanted to get out west and see what I could explore. And it really became, it was either between Aspen, Colorado, or what I thought was San Diego, California, but turned out to be Pleasanton, California, which I am incredibly grateful for, and took a job working with Dahlin Architecture and Planning. And that was, I don't know, maybe a month out of college. I asked my parents if they could help me get to California and help me put a deposit down on an apartment, and the rest was truly history. The biggest thing for me was networking, was really growing my network, because I moved out there not knowing a single person. I had some family in LA, but they were in the film industry, so it was a completely different world for me. As a young professional, I truly think the best thing anybody can do is get into the networking events. You know, whether that's a mixer or a chamber of commerce events, you know, a recruiting fair, whatever it could be. Put yourself in a position that the company says that young person will go out and be our representative, will represent our company, because it made me meet a lot of incredible people. And to this day, I volunteer for the Building Industry Association, which is very, very big in California, specifically the Bay Area, which is one of the most difficult areas to build homes, not to mention build anything else for that matter. I'm also a part of the National Association of Home Builders, That alone, between those two programs, have grown my network immensely. And to this day, I'm very fortunate to have very, very close friends and colleagues that I've kind of grown with this industry. One of the greatest things about the industry themselves is the people. Everybody wants to build homes, and it doesn't matter if those are affordable homes, tiny homes for homeless shelters, or market rate homes in the Bay Area. I mean, everybody knows our end goal, and that's to build beautiful homes to help families start their lives in and grow forever. So that's truly, truly, I think, the most important thing about what I do in my industry, and why I do what I do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I heard you touch on that you studied abroad. Could you maybe tell me about your experience? Because for me, our class didn't get to go because of COVID and everything, and it's just kind of not working out where we won't get to go. So I kind of need to live through somebody else. So I would love to hear like maybe what it was like going, like what was the benefit of moving around like you do now and back then.
Definitely take a couple months off and go, or a
Like
month,
really,
or just a couple weeks. Plus, save some money away. I know it's gonna be tough, but definitely do it. Um, Studying abroad for me, I was never a huge, like, I wanted to go to Europe or I wanted to go to a foreign country before that point. I knew Marywood had offered that to students, and I had known friends in, years ahead of me that had done it, and they basically just said, just do it. She goes, I don't care if you have any sort of doubt, just do it, and it will all go away. And I was very fortunate to have been able to go abroad and being able to explore. I lived in Florence, Italy, for anybody who doesn't know that, Florence, Italy. The study abroad experience wasn't the hammer down design, spend long nights in studios and crank out mini models and do all of the hard work that I think Marywood is, or even more technical schools that really put you through the grindstone and say, hey, do you really want to do this for a living? Being in Europe, it was so much more about seeing thousands and thousands of year-old buildings that stood the test of time, that still exist to this day. I talked about the mindset earlier of just like architecture in general. Like you want to go to a place where that was just a mindset. It was all about somebody's perception of how beautiful a building could be, how people actually use spaces. Go to Europe. I mean, these areas are truly, truly thousands and thousands of years old, and I don't think people can grasp that nature living in the United States. Knowing our history, I mean, the United States is only 300 years old. I mean, some areas in Europe that you get to experience, some museums, cathedrals, piazzas, plazas, I mean, truly thousands and thousands of years old, and they have stood the test of time. They are as successful as they were back when they were created. And, I took an incredible class in Marywood that was called, I hope it still exists, I don't know, it was called Histories and Theories of Urban Morphology. And for me, that blew my mind because it talked about the development of, ancient cities and where it started. It was the difference between what they call the donkey's way and the man's way. The donkey's way, they formed roads based off of, how the animals could navigate, how they could travel up hills and windy roads, versus the man's way, where everything was a square or a box or a street corner kind of deal, and more orthogonal. When you go to Europe and you start to see that, you start to see some of these organic cities that started in one location, the town square, and it kind of organically grew from there on out. No straight roads, everything kind of winds and bends and turns, versus areas like, I think, Paris, for example. Like Paris went through that same organic growth, but the density just took over, and then they had to demolish it and then truly rebuild, knowing the man's way, how this area was going to truly be able to grow and develop with modern times. Europe was an incredible experience, not only for travel, but just to see how these different cultures live, putting yourselves in these perspectives, and more or less just kind of putting yourself in an uncomfortable spot. My mother and my father were obviously very afraid for me to like move to California and kind of go venture off on my own. But the one thing I said, I was like, I navigated 7 foreign countries that I did not speak the language in, and with just a map, and fortunately modern technology with my iPhone, because that was a map and I could figure out where I was if I needed to. I go, at least in this side of the world, I do speak the language, and I have the ability to figure out where I am. So again, if you can, I highly recommend every single, even if it's for a week, go to Europe, go to Italy, go to Paris, London, Amsterdam, Barcelona, wherever you can go, because those were the cities I went to, and truly have, clearly had a lasting impact on how I take life.
Yeah, me and a couple of like the other girls in my class are like trying to figure something out maybe after graduation, but it's kind of put on the back burner until then kind of thing. So yeah, I'm just like really, I just all the stories that you hear from there, it's just incredible. So I really want to try to
Yeah.
go out. But yeah, also you said that you did work in commercial architecture, but you kind of were steering towards single family architecture. So what made you want to do that instead? Or what made you pick single family and not commercial?
So I loved, or at least kind of questioned, the theory of like living in a single family home, not to mention living it, like let alone designing it. Um, I was always amazed where the like your mother or father, my mother or father, wanted to actually grow up in their home, their family home, then move out and then actually buy their family home back from their parents and then raise their family in it. I don't know if it's a level of like comfortability, like how you grew up and you wanted to raise your family in that same structure, in that same form and mass and like spaces. It kind of drew me into it because I never wanted that. I To this day, like I do not want to buy my parents' house and then hopefully raise a family or have my family in this house. I want to do something new. So um, single family always had, some kind of attraction to me, more or less because you're truly involved in somebody's life. You're truly helping somebody else live their life and live in their dream home. The American dream at one point was to buy a single family home and live in it. Now, to this day, I don't believe that like that should be the truth. That everybody, should, their own American dream is their own American dream. So, to be able to impact somebody's life by truly designing family rooms for Christmas mornings and designing backyards and covered outdoor livings for birthday parties and Fourth of July barbecues, designing bedrooms where children and baby are truly going to grow up and experience their life. That alone, to me, was all it took to get into single family architecture and just have that impact on other people's lives. We, for the most part, most of us all grew up in a single family home. We all can close our eyes and think of some of the greatest memories in our life. And to this day, regardless if I'm in my parents' home or not, I can close my eyes and tell you where every outlet was, every switch, every door, every bedroom, like how I got up and started my day. It's truly a beautiful thing. And it does vary truly by every homeowner, no matter their culture or their race or their ethnicity. Everybody lives their lives completely different, and it puts you in a position to see how that person lives their life and how you can impact it and how you can design a shelter for them to experience their life going forward. And for me, that was always the most important thing, and to this day, something I hold near and dear to myself. And I work for a company that holds that principle and that core value close to the heart, and that's why they have been successful, and that's why I enjoy working for this company. Because some people don't. Some people, it's all about dollars and cents, and people don't have that perspective. And I'm happy to say that I have that. I'm happy to say I work for people who also hold that and continue to grow and continue to change and develop as as the world progresses around them. So single family is fun. Highly recommend it for anybody else who wants to do something fun.
Yeah, it seems like super interesting. Do you have a like a specific project that sticks out in your mind that's like your favorite or like that?
My favorite, I would have to say, was from my architecture days. We got into a very, very restrictive jurisdiction. It was almost like, I think like a 15 to 20-year process to get it approved through, like, not like construction document approved, but like a design review approved through local government. And I think when I started that project, it had already been on like a 12-year life cycle. And I think I told them, I was 10 when this project started. So for me to be able to see that project from its, midpoint, and basically it started from scratch when I got my hands on it, seeing that get approved through the planning department, get built, get constructed. That was the first project I had truly ever touched, ever designed, ever put construction documents set together. And to see that get built in real life, that's one of those things you're like, okay, I did that. Like, somebody built that house based off a floor plan that I drew and I mapped and I put a dimension on it. And it's tangible. It is a real thing that you can go up there and touch and feel, and you're just like, I had an impact in that. Like, I had a part. And now a family is going to move into there with their newborn children. Like, they're going to spend time in the parks that you had designed, the sidewalks, the bike paths, the trails, everything under the sun. And it's truly amazing. That, I think, that is probably my favorite because that was the first. I'm fortunate enough to say that I worked on, production wise, upwards of like 300 homes maybe.
Yeah.
And I mean, that one alone was like probably 136 home subdivision. Now I work on kind of one-offs, one at a time. So that alone, I'm sure I'll have some more favorites going on, but I'll always remember that one for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, like you said, it's like super important to remember that like people will be enjoying this space. And I think like Marywood definitely tries to like to make you focus on how you will be feeling in that space. So I think it's interesting that you like still talk about that even after graduating. So makes you like really appreciate your education and like my process of going through it right now.
Puts it in perspective a little bit more. It's not just long nights.
Yeah. So also I read that you found augmented reality for architects.
So yeah, that was I'm a little bit of a techie dork, which is why I kind of moved to the Bay Area where the tech was, kind of very very forward thinking. So I built a augmented reality app that actually took 3D models of single family homes and put them on like business cards. So if you were a future home buyer, you could actually take one of these business cards, scan it with your phone, and the home would actually appear, and you could kind of blow it up, make it smaller. You could kind of walk through your own home. That was super fun. It gave me a quick insight into the business world of how to actually start a business and how to make it viable. It was definitely a wake up call, but it was more fun for me, to try to, I don't even want to say disrupt, but truly market itself as a, single family home like marketing product and market material. So yeah, that was a fun couple of years.
So how did you come up with the idea originally, and what who helped you along the way, or was it all just your own idea?
So I had stumbled upon a couple of other like random mobile applications, saw some videos, and I had a little bit of a coding background that I just thought was fun, and I thought I could kind of explore and see what it could do. So I really started showing that. I showed this kind of off app, and it was funny because it sounds a little sketchier than it actually was, but it was based off of a power plant company that had, the point of the augmented reality app was to show three-dimensionally how water was working its way, natural water was working its way through a power plant, and how cool the system sounds. It was really, really intricate. They did a beautiful job with it. And I looked at it, I was like, well, I build 3D models, like I build SketchUp models, I build Revit models, like I could do this, like I could figure this out. And a lot of my coworkers and bosses and supervisors were all like, absolutely, go do it. Like that would be awesome. And I'm very fortunate that I was working for Dahlin at the time where they said, here's a ton of 3D models. Like these are some active projects that we can show to some of our clients. And all the support in the world they gave me to actually pursue it and do it and kind of showcase and show this off to some of our clients. So it was fun. Unfortunately, didn't make as much money off of it as I thought I was going to. And I have some other passions that I started to dive down and focus in. So that died away pretty quickly, but I'm very, very, fortunate to have that learning experience and to be able to talk about it. That technology will make its way into the industry much, much quicker than we realize. And it's here now. There's just
Yeah.
larger companies doing kind of 3D model like renderings and walkthroughs like Matterport. A couple of them other are like Focus 360, and they're becoming really, really popular. It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before somebody can put the headset on in a production like home building world and be able to fly through their house. And it's there. The technology is there. It's just going to take somebody to implement it and put it into place.
Yeah, I agree. That's really cool. I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but you also mentioned earlier when we started talking that you have kind of a similar web show. Could you tell us a little bit about that? And like, I watched one episode prior to here,
yep.
and it was like oh my god, stumbling over my words. Do you get like some consistent answers, or like do you get different answers from everyone, or I don't know, like just how does it go, and how did you get that started?
Sure. So the theme behind the show and the title of it is called Why You Do What You Do. And this all kind of started in COVID while I was working for Dallin. I had a mentor of mine, his name's Donald Ruthroff, and he, every Friday around like 1 or 2 o'clock, during the work from home, during all this kind of, nobody really knows what's going on in the world, but let's try to like hone in and, touch on people's family lives. Like, hey, what have you been doing during COVID? What meal are you cooking this week? He really wanted to focus not on work. He wanted to make sure people were still taking care of themselves. And, this question of the day, there was a theme of the day every other week. And then he would always wrap up his comments with, well, why do you do what you do? And, some people would chime in, and it was something that I really, took hold of, because every day during COVID, whether people were going through some kind of depression, they didn't know if they were going to have a job the next day or the next week. Life was so uncertain, you kind of got to question everything and say, well, why am I working? Why am I doing what I am doing? And I was able to kind of take that and morph it into a more kind of like a talk show, kind of like what a student's perspective is, and where I ask industry leaders, professionals from, most of my connections are in the Bay Area and up and down California, but it started to seep its way across the country. So I've interviewed people in Des Moines, Iowa, Colorado, Florida, South Carolina, kind of all over the place, through the National Association of Home Building, through the Building Industry Association. And I asked them, what's your background, where you came from, and ultimately why they do what they do. And, you get some very similar answers like, I do it because of the people. The people in this industry are incredible. They all share similar values, and that's what makes our industry so great. All the way down to, the unconventional paths through life. One of my favorite stories is a woman by the name of Emily Boyd. Incredible woman, somebody who's been a mentor of mine ever since I joined the BIA as a young professional. She started off her career as a forensic scientist and is now the director of land acquisitions for Tri-Point Homes in Northern California. And I mean, she talk about a completely different, like complete change in industry like that. And I'm sure it wasn't like that, but just the idea of just jumping ship and starting over. That's okay in our life, and then to see somebody of her stature and her level and her experience be able to do that, why can't anybody else do it? And the perspective for me was to really showcase those stories, put those stories out in the world and realize, hey, me as a 28-year-old or somebody just coming out of college or somebody who's midway through their career and wants to switch it up and go do something else, like that's okay. Like you can do that. You got to find what you're passionate about. I'm fortunate enough to find an industry that I am passionate about at a young age. That was home building. Some people didn't get it. Some people haven't found those passions yet. And at some point, it's okay to switch it up and start over. And to really just to hear those stories and get those resources out into the world to the younger professionals, to the students, to kind of just get other people's insights into life, into their careers and what they're going to do. It's really, really fun. And I'm glad a lot of people have gotten excited about it because now they're reaching out to me asking for them to be interviewed. So it's been fun so far, and I'm excited to keep doing it.
Yeah, I feel like I have to ask you why you do what you do, since that is your big question. But I know you touched on it a little bit, talking
Yep.
about otherwise, but yeah, why do you do what you do?
I definitely touched on it before already, when or why I do what I do. I've had great clients and I've had bad clients. I've had people that were all about money and people who are all about building the most beautiful home for their future, home buyer, their home tenant. And I had one experience for me that kind of stuck with me for a little bit because I did have a client who, called a below market rate home, or even a affordable housing, you know, they called it like a crack house. And honestly, that kind of like that really, it took a lot for me to keep my mouth shut as somebody who was 25 years old, was 2 years into his career. And it really, really ate at me for a while. And I'm very grateful to say that that still burns within me today, because an affordable home in a below market rate home in California is on the low end a $750,000 house. Like that is just absurd to think that. And in some areas that's $1 million home. And to think that way, to build your business that way, to try to impact people's lives that way, it ate at me. Now I'm very grateful to work that I was working for Dahlin, who was a company that did not think that way. They were all about designing the best home possible, and with their clients in mind, and their degree and their passion. Now, I always knew I wanted to get into home building. I knew I wanted that mindset because I wanted to be the one that says, this is my reason that we're building this house. This is my passion. And now I work for a company where that is their core value. Thomas James Homes. I could not have selected a better company that at least matches my moral values and my core values in my industry and what I care about. So I build homes, and I said it before, and this is my kind of thing before. I hate the word product. I hate the word units, because we're talking about finances, which is kind of what I do a little bit now. That's what people care about. They care about the numbers, care about product, and care about units. I hate saying that because we don't build units. We don't build product. Like, we build homes for people. We get to design kitchens for Thanksgiving, like celebrations or any other holidays. Or like, we build family rooms for Christmas mornings, like the outdoor living spaces for birthday parties. Like, that's what I hold near and dear, and that's why I love home building. And that is why I do what I do. And you're the first person who's ever asked me that. So other than Dahlin side of things, so I appreciate it.
Yeah. I felt like I needed you asking everyone else. I felt like I needed to get your perspective on that.
Yeah.
But well, I'll ask our classic question, and it's like, what advice would you give your student self if you can go back and give it to him?
There's so many things. I would say the biggest one, and I touched on it earlier with like when I kind of started building my own apps and trying to like sell those programs, is to learn a little bit more about the business side of things. Taking business classes, finance classes, understanding that, how money actually works in an industry like home building or like architecture. Because in architecture, generally you are working for somebody else that is financing a project. And yes, you might have some kind of extravagant design. It could change the world and change the design future as we know it. But if it doesn't pencil and there's not enough money to make it work, it's not going to get built. And it's amazing to see some of the things that have been built, that have been constructed. Zaha Hadid was one of my favorite architects. God bless her. But she was, thinking about how a client might have saw that design. It was like, what? How can I build that? Like, how is that going to stand up? And obviously, you put it on an engineer's shoulders. But definitely taking business classes, taking some finance classes. It's tough in colleges, and it's tough, like especially in architecture. Curriculums are so fine-tuned. The amount of credits that you need to take to achieve your degree. I don't necessarily agree with some of that. I think there should be some leeway. There should be some room to change, because as students, you're not just going into the architecture world. Like, you're going into the world of business. You need to understand how money changes hands, how money flows, how, every hour that you spend on a project impacts a project budget. It impacts the finances. Not to mention the actual finances that go behind how somebody actually builds a home, or how libraries and schools and things get built. So I do wish I don't want to say I wish I got my MBA because I am incredibly grateful for the architecture program and what that did for me, how that changed my mindset about what I knew about architecture, not to mention home building. So definitely, if you can, and even if you need to do it on the side, take some business classes, take some finance classes, and get a better understanding of budgets and dollars and cents. If not, you're in for a real wake up call when you get into the real world, because it is true. It's an eye opener.
Yeah, I definitely think it would be beneficial to add that on to my resume, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm all out of questions. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about that I missed?
How's Marywood? How's the school?
It's so good. I'm glad to be back and to actually be in studio.
Yeah.
To be online studio was really, really hard.
Sure.
But I'm just glad to walk into the building every day and I get to be here, and I can't complain about being here super, super late because I did miss it. So I don't know if you can see kind of their own studio over there right now. But yeah, it's just really exciting to be back. I'm excited. A student's perspective is going to High Point the 14th, so that's super exciting.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so it's kind of like High Point Market, so we get to do some interviews there, and just for us, experience it for the first time. We sadly didn't get to go the past I think 2 years, so yeah, I'm excited. I don't know.
It'll be fun. I haven't been back to Marywood in a few years. I hope to get back soon the next time I'm on the East Coast. And best of luck to all you guys. Study hard. Try to I'd say stay in school as long as possible, but I know architecture school can be a little bit of a burden sometimes. But take every opportunity you can in it.
Yeah, everyone's talking about whether to move on to masters or not right now. So because this is I'm a senior here right now, so I'm in the interior program.
Very nice.
Yeah, so it's exciting. We're right now in studio. We're actually working with a client for the first time. It's in Archibald, but it's like an old oil house, and
wow.
So we're right now trying to build a physical model of the site to bring in to our meeting with them. So they actually reached out to us and asked us to help them with ideas to make for them. So it's super exciting. Right now they're thinking like a coffee house or something, but it's right off of a biking and running trail. So they want to kind of gear it towards that, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I'm excited, but thank you, Mark, for speaking with us today. I really enjoyed our conversation, and it is nice to talk to someone who goes to the same school that I do. So if you liked our conversation today, like and share and comment any questions that you may have. So thank you, and this is a student's perspective.